Welcome everyone to CivilNet. On Wednesday morning, a group of Israeli police officers entered an area of the Armenian Quarter in Jerusalem's Old City known as the Cow's Garden and began dismantling outposts set up there by members of the Armenian community. The Armenian Quarter is one of 4 neighborhoods that make up Jerusalem's Old City and is considered part of the occupied Palestinian territories by the international community. This is far from the first incident pitting law enforcement and settler groups against Jerusalem's Armenians, who for more than 6 months now have organized round-the-clock sit-ins in an effort to save the Cow's Garden, a parking lot that covers some 25% of the quarter, from a takeover by Israeli real estate developers. Armenian community members say losing the Cow's Garden would pose an existential threat to their community and irrevocably damage Jerusalem's multicultural and multireligious character. To discuss, I'm joined today by Setrag Balian, co-founder of the Save the ArQ movement, which aims to defend and preserve Jerusalem's Armenian Quarter. Setrag, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Setrag, I understand you were there on the ground at the Cow's Garden during this latest attempt by the real estate developer to take control of the land against the wishes of the Armenian Patriarchate and the Armenian community. To start, can you tell us, please, more about exactly what happened Wednesday? How was it that the police were involved? Who are the settlers? Where did they come from and why? In short, what happened?
Okay, so let me start by giving a brief context of the situation on the ground. So in April of 2023, the company had possessed a majority of the area that was leased to them, which is the parking lot, the main parking lot of the Armenian Quarter. And of course, after the Patriarchate in October 2023, following months and months of protests by the community, the Armenian Patriarchate decided to cancel the deal. Once they sent the letter of cancellation to the company, that's when all the attacks started. That is also when the community, along with the Patriarchate, was thankfully able to repossess the land and keep it under Armenian control until the courts come to a decision. So there are right now two lawsuits pending in the courts, one from the Armenian Patriarchate against Zana Gardens, which is the development company, and one from the Armenian community attacking the deal, which is right now also in the courts in the Israeli courts.
And on Wednesday, can you tell us what happened?
So on Wednesday morning at approximately 11:30 a.m., a group of policemen with a group of either Israeli settlers or residents of the Jewish quarter. I mean, it wasn't very clear who these people are. I mean, it's not very easy to identify whether they are settlers or religious extremists or other kinds of groups, but they entered the parking area and started dismantling the 2 temporary guard cabins that were put up there by the Armenian Patriarchate and community in order to continue the guarding of the parking lot until the decisions from the courts come. So the police came in illegally without a search warrant, without any kind of warrants, without any kind of court decisions. And this is a flagrant, violation of international law. It's a flagrant violation of Israeli law, even. And they came in and dismantled the guards' rooms and refused to present any sort of documents that allow them to act in this way. And it's also worth mentioning that 1 month ago, so in the parking lot, 99% of the parking lot is under the possession of the Armenian community and Patriarchate. There's only 1 room left, which is under the control of Zana Garden, the private investment company. But they do not control the parking lot in any way. They just stay in that room. So 1 month ago, the room was empty, and the Armenian community and Patriarchate wanted to take over that room as well, as it was empty and it lied in the heart of the parking lot. But the police came and intervened very quickly and said that because there are 2 court cases pending, that there can't be any changes on the ground, any changes to the status quo. 1 month later, so on Wednesday, they came, and when and there were no changes whatsoever. The guard cabins were there for months. The Patriarchate and community were guarding the parking lot for months, 6 months, as you said, almost. We are in that area. So they came and changed the status quo, and they changed the facts on the ground. Again, flagrant violation of international and Israeli law.
And I'm wondering, I understand that there have been altercations and incidents with the police before, but the other people who were present Wednesday, have you seen them before? I understand it's difficult to know exactly who they are, but is that new?
So it's a different group this time, but honestly, it looked like the police just went to some neighborhood and picked up a few guys and brought them with them. I mean, if the police had court orders and decisions, they would have come with an official company that would have been in full uniform with their cameras so that they show that the dismantling is being done without any damage to the property. There are ways to do it, and the guard room should have been confiscated and put in an area where it would have been said that the police has confiscated this because it goes against the court decision or court order. But because they did not have that, I mean, it seemed like they acted like thugs, just taking some people from the streets, bringing them with them, and just starting to dismantle structures. And these are temporary structures, They have no basis, even if they want to say, to claim that we have added buildings or some sort of construction. But these are Keter boxes that are temporary that you can move, I mean, with one hand. So even that is out of the question. And if that were the case, they should have gone to the municipality, because it's the municipality who deals with illegal constructions or illegal structures, and should have gotten a paper from the municipality claiming that these are new structures that weren't allowed by the municipality, and then they could have dismantled it. But again, every procedural step that should have been taken, every legal step that should have been taken, was completely ignored by the police, and they show extreme bias. Ever since the beginning of this conflict, the beginning of this contractual conflict, the beginning of the attacks on the Armenian community and patriarchy, the police has shown extreme bias on the side of the private company. And I mean, it's very easy to deduce that there are other groups operating behind the police. There are other groups operating by the private company that allow them to face total impunity, and that basically give them a carte blanche to do whatever they want.
Thank you for getting us up to speed about what exactly took place Wednesday. I'd love to step back for just a minute. The controversy over the Cow's Garden dates back to last year, when it came to light that representatives of the Armenian Patriarchate signed a deal with an Israeli hotel developer to lease away the Cow's Garden for almost a century, for 99 years. In very brief terms, can you give us the background? And then I understand there are 2 lawsuits pending in court right now. What is the status of those cases?
Yes. So this 98-year, to be more precise, it's 49 years. That is automatically renewable unless the private company, so the lessee, does not wish to renew it. So it's a de facto 98-year lease. We have to keep a few things in mind before understanding the context. So how does the Armenian Patriarchate work? We have the Patriarch, who is basically the supreme leader, if you will. And then you have the Holy Synod, which acts like a cabinet, which is comprised of 8 priests. And then you have the General Assembly, which is basically like the Congress or Senate, which has 30 priests from all over the world. Unfortunately, according to the bylaws of the Patriarchate and Constitution, any leases over 25 years have to be ratified not only by the Patriarch and the Grand Vicar who had signed on this contract, but also the head of the Holy Synod and the head of the General Assembly, which was not done. The 2 signatures of the head of the Holy Synod and the head of the General Assembly were not present on that contract. That is why we deem this land deal illegal, and it goes against even the internal bylaws of the institution itself. So 3 people signed on that contract: the Patriarch, the Grand Vicar, and the former real estate director who has since been defrocked, Baret Yeretzian, who is considered to be also the mastermind behind this deal, because he was the one who approached or was approached by the developer, and he's the one who negotiated with them until they brought the contract to the Patriarch's desk, who then signed it. Knowingly or unknowingly, either way, it's a huge mistake, and it's a treacherous deal that was signed. That is why today we have, as you said, 2 court cases pending in the Israeli courts. So the first court case was presented on December 26th of 2023 by the Armenian Patriarchate against Zana Gardens, and that case is based on 3 main arguments. The first argument is the misrepresentation done by the company. So the Patriarchate claims that the company and the investors are not who they said they were, that they lied about the funds they had and the experience they had in hotel management and hotel building, is mainly vis-a-vis the Danny Rothman Rubinstein, who was the main investor and the one who signed the contract. And later, the other investor who joined, George Warwar, who is a Greek Melkite Christian, Arab Israeli, has actually a criminal record, an extensive criminal record, and has been in a lot of problems. And even Danny Rothman Rubinstein has had a lot of fishy businesses all over the world and was fined by different courts for a breach of contract or failure to comply with the court's decisions. So this is one of the main arguments. The second argument of the patriarchate is bribery. Bribery that people from within the patriarchate, I'm assuming mainly the former defrocked priest, Baret Yeretzian, had received bribes in order to get this contract through. And the third argument is that the patriarch and the patriarchate were not aware of the extent of this deal and were not aware of the exact size of the deal. So the patriarchate claims that they were aware of one part of the parking lot, but they were definitely not aware on the 5 family homes of Armenian families, on the private parking, the private garden of the patriarchate, and definitely not on the seminary hall, which is where we commemorate our Armenian genocide events and our joint community event. So these are the 3 main arguments put forward by the Armenian patriarchate. 2 months later, on February 18th, the Armenian community also filed a lawsuit demanding a declaratory judgment from the courts and attacking this deal. So there are 2 main arguments in the community's lawsuit, which was signed, by the way, by over 400 signatories, which for Jerusalem Armenian is a majority of the adults, an absolute majority of the adults that could have signed the power of attorney for this lawsuit. And the 2 main arguments are, first, the argument of the authority. As I said, the patriarch was not authorized. The 3 signatories were not authorized to sign such a deal. And in that argument, we also used a letter written by a majority of the priests of the General Assembly, 17 priests, a few months after the contract was signed a letter saying that they opposed the deal and that they were not made aware of the deal until after it was signed. So this is an argument that, unfortunately, the patriarchate either couldn't make or wouldn't make, but either way, the community felt compelled that this is a very strong argument that had to be made nevertheless. The second argument, which is kind of a silver bullet, if you will, is that this piece of land is actually a waqf. A waqf is trust and endowment. This is what it means. And it means also that all waqfs, all trusts cannot be sold or leased, regardless of who is the trustee, who is the custodian of the land. They are not allowed to lease it or sell it, and certainly not without informing the beneficiaries of the trust, which is the Armenian Christian community in Jerusalem. This was a major, a major document that was found. It's a document dating back to 1574. So also to keep in mind is that according to the bylaws of the patriarchate, any land that is bought with the personal money of bishops or priests has to be registered as a waqf. And this is exactly in order to protect these types of properties that would, after the death of these priests and bishops, go to family members otherwise. So what Father Andreas, Patriarch Bishop Andreas, who was the Patriarch of Jerusalem back then, he bought this land with his own money and he entrusted it to the Armenian Christian community in Jerusalem. It says it in black and white that this trust is for the benefit and the interest of the Armenian Christian community in Jerusalem. So these are the 2 main arguments that were put forward by the community. And I want to add also that the community is obviously not against the patriarchate, that we still work with the patriarchate, we work with them on the ground. Legally, we are having difficulties to work more closely with them, but our relations remain stable and peaceful and cooperative. And this lawsuit that was presented by the Armenian community has one goal, is to strengthen the patriarchate's case, to strengthen the patriarchate's lawsuit. It also says it in the community's lawsuit that we are here to protect our institution. This is a 1,500-year-old institution. The Armenian Patriarchate has, for these past 1,500 years, been the custodian and the guardian of Armenian interests, of the Armenian community. It has developed the Armenian Quarter. It has maintained the Armenian Quarter. It has even enlarged the Armenian Quarter. So there is no division here. We are united, and we are fighting a united front against these developers and whoever may be behind them.
Setrag, I also want to ask you, the controversy over the Cow's Garden began months before Hamas's attack on Israel last October and Israel's devastating war on Gaza that has followed. As the war now grinds toward its 6th month, what can you tell us about the broader context and how that's impacting Jerusalem's Armenian community? What's the atmosphere in the city right now?
Okay. So regarding the war's effects on the struggle in the Armenian Quarter, actually we believe that the investment company and those acting and the groups that are behind it miscalculated a lot of things. First of all, they thought that because all eyes are on Gaza, that the Armenian Quarter and the issue of the Armenians would be forgotten in the news, but it had the opposite effect. Because all of the journalists were already stationed in Jerusalem and sent to Jerusalem, a lot of correspondents were here, and as soon as they heard about the issues in the Armenian Quarter, everybody rushed to the Armenian Quarter, and it became one of the spotlights of the region. I mean, today more than 200, 300 media outlets have covered this, from the US to the UK to France to all over the world. So that was the first miscalculation on behalf of the company. The second was that the Armenian community is a very peaceful community. The Armenian community is maybe even the most peaceful in Jerusalem, Israel, and Palestine, and it has never caused any problems, has always maintained good relations with all its neighbors, be it the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, or the Christian quarter. And they mistook our peacefulness for fear. And they thought by sending bulldozers, sending thugs, sending armed settlers, sending the police, that they would intimidate this peaceful community who would cower away inside their convent and give away this land. But they very quickly found out that the Armenian community is here to stay, that the Armenian community, being the oldest, one of the oldest communities in Jerusalem, will fight for every inch of their land and will go till the end to protect their interests, to protect their rights, and to protect their historic presence in the Holy Land.
And finally, Setrag, I want to ask you, what is the situation at the Cow's Garden as we speak now, 2 days later? When can we expect decisions on those court cases? And what do you want folks watching who are not in Jerusalem to know?
Okay. So the situation on the ground right now. So after they removed the cabins of the guards, because it's quite sunny here and the weather is getting pretty hot, we decided to put a gazebo, which is just to have shade. You know, again, it's a very temporary structure. It can be disassembled in 30 seconds. But unfortunately, the police once more, with a flagrant violation of Israeli law and of local laws and international laws, came and removed the gazebo. So right now we're wondering, what if I go with my own umbrella? Will they also come and confiscate the umbrella that's giving me shade? So it's a very unusual and very shocking situation for Armenians in Jerusalem, who have otherwise not had this much bias from the police. This must be said. I mean, of course, the Palestinians face this every day, but the Christians usually and the Armenians were spared of this extreme bias. But we are slowly learning that these people, that these groups, that this police has a complete disregard and disdain for the Armenian community, for the Christian community, and they are willing to go break every law that there is in order to intimidate and to scare Armenians. So the situation on the ground right now is relatively stable, but of course we are still guarding the premises 24 hours, 7 days a week, the community members, but also the guards that are hired by the Armenian Patriarchate, and we are always ready for any confrontation that might happen on the ground. As for the sorry, there was two other questions.
No worries. When can you expect a decision in the court cases?
So the court cases. So what happens in Israel when you file a lawsuit? The opposing parties have 60 days to answer. Since the Patriarchate had applied on December 26th, the company should have answered by now, but they asked for an extension from the Patriarchate, which was given to them a 1-month extension. And after the 1-month extension, they asked for another 2 weeks, which was given again to them by the Patriarchate, unfortunately. And recently, they even extended it for another 2 weeks. Now, this is very problematic because if they had answered and at least a judge would have been assigned to this case, you could have gone to that judge and said that the police is interfering and doing changes on the ground. So have an injunction or a court order that forbids the police to make any changes on the ground. But because they were granted extensions, we cannot go through that legal procedure. So we are waiting for another 10 days for the company to answer to the Patriarchate, and the community's lawsuit should be answered at the end of the month or the beginning of May, because there's the Passover holidays right now, so the courts might be closed during that time. And once they answer, I mean, a court date, a first hearing has to be scheduled. The judge has to be, appointed on the case, and this might take a few months. It all depends on the schedule of the court. But we assume maybe in September we will have a first hearing about this case, since also August is closed. The courts close in August, so September should, if everything goes normally, and nothing does usually in Jerusalem, but it should be in September, hopefully. And as for the diaspora and the Armenians and the international community, everybody has to know that the fight for the Armenian Quarter is not only a fight for Armenians. This is a fight for the Armenian presence. This is a fight for the Christian presence, but this is also a fight to keep the unique and diverse character of Jerusalem. This is a fight to keep the status quo in Jerusalem until negotiations decide the final status of Jerusalem. And this is a fight for the multi-ethnic, multi-faith, multicultural dimension of Jerusalem. And hopefully, the international community will join us in condemning these blatant acts of these blatant illegal acts by the Israeli police, and exert pressure on the Israeli authorities to stop any changes in the status quo until the courts reach a decision on this matter.
Great. Well, Setrag, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us and for shedding light on this issue.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.